Tashdile. Last week we read out the recommendations for the first two forums, which were Shaping Tibet's Political Future and 550 Youth Forum. Today we will be reading out the recommendations for the third forum, that is 550 Forum Towards a Resilient Community. There are a total of 4 themes, and they are Sustaining Tibetan Culture, Strengthening Tibetan Education, A Healthier Tibetan Community, and Economic Development of Tibetan Community. Today we will read out the recommendations for the first 2 themes, which are Sustaining Tibetan Culture and Strengthening Tibetan Education. The remaining 2 themes will be read out in the next episode. 550 Forum Towards a Resilient Tibetan Community was a follow-on to the gathering convened in 2017, but one that focused on the development and long-term resiliency objectives of the 550 vision. The forum, held in Dharamshala from the 13th to 16th September 2018, brought selected experts, advisors, practitioners, donors, and friends deeply familiar with the core themes of the forum together. It was organized to explore the critical developments and resiliency challenges and opportunities associated with the Tibetan community. The forums were Theme 1, Sustaining Tibetan Culture; Theme 2, Economic Development of Tibetan Community; Theme 3, Strengthening Tibetan Education; Theme 4, A Healthier Tibetan Community. Under Culture, the forum addressed topics related to defining Tibetan culture, Tibetan language, Tibetan Buddhism, the role of museums and cultural institutions, and Tibetan arts. Economic development focused on migration and youth-related issues, agriculture, financial services, entrepreneurship, and role of Tibetans living overseas. Education addressed the quality of educational issues, school leadership, demographic challenges, basic education policy, and the nurturing professionals. Health topics were health challenges faced by the Tibetan community, financial stability of the Tibetan health system, capacity building, expansion and integration of Sowa Rigpa, and alternative service delivery modes and preventive care. The primary purpose for the forum was to help the Tibetan leadership and community address some core questions related to the themes and to investigate innovative ideas and solutions. These core questions were addressed against a backdrop of profound challenges occurring in Tibet and in the exile community. The state of Tibetan culture and language and the economic and personal wellness of Tibetans in Tibet continue to be dismal under harsh Chinese occupation. The forum was organized by CTA's Social and Resource Development. Department of Finance is also a part of the Tibetan Self-Reliance and Resilience program funded by USAID. Theme: Sustaining Tibetan Culture. Background: historians have compiled records of a rich and thriving civilization in Tibet spanning over 3,000 years. Archaeological findings reveal evidence of an even more ancient civilization dating back 12,000 years. Tibet's earlier civilization was found in its indigenous religious system of Bön. Tibet has also received civilizational and cultural influences from other countries and regions over its long history, including from Persia, Khotan, Turkey, China, and India. In the 7th century of the Common Era, a momentous change occurred in Tibet when Buddhism was introduced and became the state religion. The development eventually reshaped Tibet's entire civilization and domain of thought. It influenced the knowledge systems of spiritual practice, philosophy, medicine, astronomy, and art, and deeply penetrated the life of everyone in the Tibetan community. Buddhism arrived in Tibet from India. The complete system of knowledge, spirituality, and culture from the great Indian monastic universities of India, Nalanda, Odantapuri, Vikramshila, and Takshila, was transmitted to Tibet in a comprehensive manner. The learning of these great Buddhist universities included philosophy, logic, epistemology, psychology, medicine, astronomy, metallurgy, arts, poetry, grammar, languages, and literature. It is through its long history of civilization and the transmission of the knowledge, spirituality, and culture of the Buddhist monastic universities of India that Tibetan culture, as described in more detail under topic 1 below, evolved. Over time, Tibet nurtured and developed the learning and systems that came from India and transformed them in many ways to become the Tibetan culture we know today. In the middle of the 20th century, Tibet and its people suffered unimaginable tragedy after the Chinese invasion and occupation of Tibet. Around 80,000 Tibetan people fled into exile in India, Nepal and Bhutan, while Chinese forces set out to destroy and eliminate Tibetan culture and ethnic identity in Tibet itself. After His Holiness the Dalai Lama flight to India, he recognized the imminent threat to Tibetan culture in both the exile and Chinese policies in Tibet presented. As a result, he immediately began to focus on the preservation of Tibetan culture in exile, primarily by establishing settlements in India, Nepal and Bhutan where Tibetan refugees could live and maintain Tibetan culture, establishing schools for Tibetan children where they could receive both modern education and learn Tibetan language and about Tibetan culture, re-establishing the major monasteries, monastic institutions that had been destroyed in Tibet as important new centers for preserving Tibetan Buddhism and Tibetan culture. Tibetan Buddhism and Tibetan culture are now prominent around the world. Tibetan culture, however, is under threat as never before as Chinese efforts to eradicate Tibetan culture in Tibet continue and the exile community of Tibetans become more dispersed and subject to the pressures and attractions of modern societies. Thus, sustaining and preserving Tibetan culture is one of the most important challenges that now confronts the Tibetan people. Recommendations from the 550 Forum: Defining and Sustaining Tibetan Culture. Number 1. Based on Tibetan Buddhism lineage, an internationally recognized Nalanda University should be established in a city like New Delhi. Number 2. To sustain and preserve Tibetan culture, a research center should be established. Cultural centers abroad should be revived and there should be good coordination amongst the centers. Number 3. An attempt should be made to set up a Tibetan cultural unit in international cultural centers and universities. Number 4. Build closer relationship with other followers of Tibetan Buddhist lineage overseas and with Indian cultural centers. Number 5. Facilitate regular meetings of Tibetan university students, promote the learning of Sanskrit and Pali amongst the students and support student research and scholarship. Number 6. Appoint a special cultural coordinator to promote and maintain good ties with international cultural institutions and education centers. Number 7. Increase the profile and use of the centrally located Tibet House in New Delhi by holding frequent programs and events to showcase Tibetan culture. Number 8. Develop a new website in Tibetan culture in order to facilitate learning about Tibetan culture, literature and language. The website should have updated content, learning materials and space for documenting and sharing people's experiences. Number 9. Develop an online learning program and a system of conducting examinations on Tibetan and issuing certificates. Number 10. CTA should promote a Buddhist way of life and enable people to learn Tibetan psychology. Sustaining and growing Tibetan language. Number 1. More textbooks with illustrations and cartoons should be published in Tibetan language. Number 2. Hold various cultural awareness programs for youth every 3 months. Number 3. Facilitate online Tibetan language and cultural classes for overseas Tibetan students. Number 4. CTA should advise and encourage officials to speak only in Tibetan during official meetings and other private gatherings. All official documents and records must be maintained in Tibetan language. Number 5. Advise and advocate youth about the importance of Tibetan culture and language. Number 6. CTA should recruit more staffs with high proficiency of Tibetan language and literature. Number 7. New Tibetan terminologies standardized by the Department of Education. CTA should be widely circulated through official newspapers and periodicals. Official and private media should use such terminologies to establish uniformity. There is a need to set up a special program to introduce such new terminologies. Promoting and strengthening Tibetan Buddhism and its values. Number 1. Spiritual and religious teachers should be appointed and deputed in India, Nepal, Bhutan and overseas. Number 2. Financial aid should be extended to monastic universities in need of support. CTA should maintain good relations with overseas dharma centers. Number 3. Monasteries should organize classes for the lay audience to teach them about Buddhism, spirituality and meditation. Number 4, monasteries should have designated personnel who can educate pilgrims and visitors about the monastery and its contents and explain Buddhist philosophy. Number 5, if Tibetan associations and Dharma centers decide to organize joint programs on introduction to Buddhism and culture, then the offices of Tibet and CTA should support and promote such efforts. Number 6, as often advised by His Holiness the Dalai Lama, attempts should be made to publish and widely circulate reference books on debates held with scientists. Number 7, monasteries that have Dharma centers overseas should assign an abbot and spiritual cultural teacher at their centers. Number 8, to better serve Tibetans interested in learning Buddhism, psychology, mind training and meditation, a standardized curriculum for schools should be designed and qualified teachers should be assigned to teach the curriculum. The curriculum should be implemented in India with the help of CTA's Department of Religion and Culture. Number 9, Department of Religion and Culture should nurture and support as many translators as possible so that there is a large pool of highly qualified translators. Number 10, CTA should facilitate workshops for geshes, abbots and nuns so that they are better equipped to promote Tibetan Buddhism in the modern world. Preserving Tibetan culture through museums, libraries and archives. Number 1, in order to sustain and safeguard existing Tibetan museum and cultural institutions under the CTA, a set of guidelines should be outlined under which a committee of professionals and scholars should be formed as part of an advisory committee. The committee should be provided honorarium. Number 2, the advisor committee can help CTA nurture and promote researchers by reaching out to schools and institutions and by helping organize international conferences on Tibetan culture. The committee should also provide assistance in producing short films, videos on Tibetan culture and distribution of periodical publications on Tibetan culture. Number 3, the cultural institutions, apart from performing cultural programs, should also conduct research on the background and origin of the performing arts tradition. And irrespective of the institute's affiliation to CTA, financial aid should be extended to all for cultural promotion. Number 4, since all the cultural lineages in Tibetan monasteries and schools are in gradual decline, an attempt should be made to establish one separate unit to conduct classes in Tibetan monasteries and schools. It should be introduced and implemented through CTA's Department of Religion and Culture. Number 5, cultural institutes affiliated to CTA should recruit professional cultural teachers and they should be paid adequate monthly salaries and the students should be given a monthly stipend to encourage them to pursue their studies and training. Certificates should be awarded to cultural artists. Number 6, all the museums and cultural institutes and traditions should be well preserved for future generations. Number 7, poetry, signing and cultural festivals should be regularly organized. Number 8, CTA should take care of cultural artists in general and provide employment opportunities. Number 9, a museum should be established in collaboration with CTA in Canada. The museum should have extensive collections covering Buddhism, culture and religion. It should also have special section on history of Tibet and planetarium. All these should be perceptible to general public visitors. Number 10, Tibetan Art Day should be celebrated to honor Tibetan art and artists. Sustaining Tibetan culture through arts. Number 1, existing library, museum and archives under CTA should be further developed. Number 2, review the resolutions passed in the special Tibetan General Meetings convened in 2008 and 2010 and review the status of those recommendations. Number 3, the CTA should provide financial support to the museums and archives as per their need. Number 4, important Tibetan cultural texts and other related materials should be archived in a comprehensive database. Number 5, the Tibetan leadership should organize seminars by inviting professionals and discuss the implementation of future plans. Number 6, professional staff should run Tibetan museums and staff should learn standard display techniques and other best practices from other museums. Number 7, the new Tibet Museum should be large enough to accommodate various sections like Tibetan literature, cultural religion and Tibetan arts. Engage Tibetan youth on Tibetan art and Buddhism and provide them with opportunities to learn Buddhism in monasteries. provide monthly stipends for their studies. Number 9. Since most of the Tibetan traditional arts and skills are gradually diminishing, initiatives should be designed to support existing Tibetan personal artists. A Center for Arts should be established with the help of CTA to preserve artworks and other traditional artifacts. Number 10. The advisory committee supporting the Department of Religion and Culture should work closely on supporting and promoting existing museums and cultural institutions. Some of the existing and important institutions are CTA's Department of Religion and Culture, Tibetan Institute of Performing Arts, Tibet House Delhi, Library of Tibetan Works and Archives in Dharamshala, Central Universities of Tibetan Higher Studies in Varanasi, Nirbalinga Institute in Dharamshala, Tibetan Medical and Astrological Institute in Dharamshala, and the Manjushri Center of Tibetan Culture in Darjeeling. Strengthening Tibetan education. Background. After the Chinese occupation of Tibet, His Holiness the Dalai Lama, along with 800 Tibetan refugees, escaped to India in 1959. Realizing the importance of education for the Tibetan cause and for propelling the exiled community into the future, His Holiness gave top priority to education. With the twin goal of providing high-quality modern education and preserving Tibetan culture and language, the first Tibetan school was established in 1960 at Mussoorie with just 50 students and a handful of teachers. Over the last 58 years, the education landscape of the exiled Tibetan community has radically changed. Not only did the number of schools increase, the infrastructural facilities and curriculum resources in the schools improved significantly. Today, with CTA's Department of Education as the apex body, the Tibetan schools are being run by 5 different school administrations: Sambodha Tibetan School Society, Tibetan Children's Village, Tibetan Homes Foundation, Central Tibetan Schools Administration, and the Snow Lion Foundation in Nepal. As of 31st March 2017, there were 67 Tibetan schools in India and Nepal under the Department of Education, wherein 19,020 students were being educated and looked after by 1,467 teaching staff and 535 non-teaching staff. According to the Tibetan Demographic Survey report published by CTA in 2010, the effective literacy rate of the exiled community is 82.4% compared to 74% of the host nation. Given the challenging circumstances under which education in exile began and sustained itself over the last 6 decades, this figure is a simple testimony to the hard work and success of the Tibetan refugee community. Every year, about 1,200 students successfully graduate from Tibetan schools, and over the last 10 years, the average pass percentage of students in class 12th board examination is 90%, which is about 10 points higher than the national average in India. Besides basic education, Department of Education invests heavily on higher education of Tibetan students. Every year, more than 500 new school and college graduates receive merit-cum-need-based scholarship from the Department of Education to pursue and continue their degree, professional and diploma courses in various higher education institutes. With combined effort of the scholarship program of DOE, TCV and THF, more than 55% of fresh class 12 graduates receive full scholarship to pursue higher studies annually. Additional 12% of graduates manage to self-finance their higher studies. The Government of India needs to be specially acknowledged for the enormous and enduring support provided to the education of the Tibetan children in India. Recommendations from the 550 Forum addressing quality of education issue. Number 1. Pay benefits and status of teachers in the society should be raised as per Article 11.1 of CTA's Basic Education Policy. Number 2. Teaching licensing as mentioned in the BEP must be implemented in all schools to improve continuous teaching professional development. Number 3. Teachers' workload must be revised and reduced to facilitate the development of their professional knowledge and skills and help them become better teachers. Number 4. To increase the effectiveness of in-service training, regular follow-up and evaluation is important. Critical self-evaluation of subject matter and skills must be conducted in every school. A set of questionnaires should be framed and teachers should be required to fill the form to access their subject knowledge and teaching skills. The evaluator should be an expert, and the aim of such evaluation should be to check the holistic development of a teacher and to encourage them. Number 5. Encourage Tibetan students to enroll into courses at the Dalai Lama Institute for Higher Education, Sara College and Central Institute of Higher Tibetan Studies to strengthen their knowledge of Tibetan language. Number 6. Facilitate teachers to undertake action research to keep the learning curve growing and learn effective teaching techniques. Number 7. Riglam and dialectic teaching should be strengthened and integrated into the teaching of every other subjects. Number 8. Weekend schools operating in overseas Tibetan community are encouraged to recruit trained Tibetan teachers. Number 9. More focus on development of teachers, professional development, exchange, training, especially at primary and pre-primary level, and more effective use of existing infrastructure and programs. Number 10. Standardization of teachers' salary in all the Tibetan schools under the administration of Department of Education. Number 11. Pre-primary and primary teachers should have a minimum of 4 years of academic experience of high school. Number 12. Separate board member must be appointed and they should frame a common policy for the recruitment of school heads, teachers and staff. Number 13. In order to foster professional development amongst teachers, a system needs to be in place to acknowledge and reward their milestones. To further boost the teachers' community, 25 years service recognition award ceremony should be organized in Dharamshala. Number 14. Education Council should be made an autonomous body with a well-defined structure of roles and responsibility of Department of Education and other administration body, TCV, Samboda, THFS. Experts and professors must be recruited in it rather than just a few bureaucrats. Number 15. Encourage teachers in research field and provide reward based on their research outcome. Number 16. Primary level teachers should be mandated to graduate from Tibetan Learning Institute to make them efficient and effective in teaching Tibetan language in compliance with the BAP. Number 17. Encourage teachers to create more room for discussion and debate rather than giving only close-ended questions in classrooms. Number 18. School heads and teachers should be taught child-centered learning and education. Number 19. Conversion of daycare center to play school in order to prepare children with a growth mindset from young age. Number 20. Department of Education should collaborate with the NGOs working on children education to have a better data and to improve the data collection method from the ground level. Number 21. Grading system must be encouraged in the schools. Strengthening school leadership. Number 1. Access effectiveness of present recruitment and selection process of school heads. Transparent eligibility criteria must be formulated for career growth. Number 2. Only master's degree holder with required training are recommended for appointment as school leaders. Number 3. Decentralize responsibility and give greater autonomy to school leaders to organize overall growth and development of their respective schools. Number 4. A separate council for teacher professional development should be formed where the member must consist of representatives from different schools and set TPD guidelines. Number 5. Provide a week, month-long in-service training for school leaders during winter break. Number 6. Teachers who possess leadership qualities should be identified and provided mentoring and nurtured. Number 7. School leadership should be transferred every 3 years. Number 8. Design and implement evaluation for school leadership. Number 9. Promote school leadership in students. Number 10. Initiate a cross-administration deputation to staff to resolve capacity issues. Impact of social and demographic challenges on education. Number 1. Consolidate schools for further utilization of resources and link existing and new programs based on population and demand. Number 2. Form a special committee to evaluate and draft a plan for consolidation of schools. Number 3. Autonomous school bodies should work together for comprehensive plan for sustainability of children's future education. Following school consolidation, establish schools with special focus on teaching of Tibetan language. Number 4, have separate schools for Tibetan and Himalayan students with different set of goals. Number 5, privatize few of the existing schools to better attract Tibetan children currently admitted in Indian private schools and those residing and studying overseas. Number 6, explore the possibility of supporting Tibetan preschools, schools, or an after-school program in the West to preserve Tibetan culture, identity, and strengthen Tibetan language. Number 7, design and implement a standardized curriculum for the Tibetan weekend schools in the West run by the Tibetan associations. Number 8, lobby government officials and legislature both at the federal and state level in the United States, Canada, and other countries and advocate for making Tibetan language as an optional foreign language in schools and universities. Challenges regarding the basic education policy implementation. Number 1, Education Council needs to be an autonomous body with clear roles and responsibility and staffed by professionals with a background and expertise in education. Number 2, review the current status of basic education policy and assess what has worked well, where improvements can be made and what revisions may be needed. Number 3, identify good Tibetan teachers to become mentors at other schools to promote innovative and effective training and learning methods. Number 4, develop more materials in Tibetan for school-going children. Textbooks should be developed according to need of the children. Number 5, integrate information and communication technology to improve teaching and learning of Tibetan language. For example, develop Tibetan learning apps and foster e-learning. Number 6, ensure adequate counseling service is available in all schools. Number 7, teaching methodology, especially Tibetan, should be upgraded and more innovative techniques should be introduced to make learning more enjoyable. Nurturing professionals in the Tibetan community. Number 1, strengthen job linkages for those graduating from vocational training centers with the industry. Number 2, broaden the range of courses offered at vocational training centers. Number 3, showcase successful individuals from VTC, ITI as role model and mentors. Number 4, provide educational loans at nominal rates for those who have gained entry in professional and advanced courses. Number 5, ensure exposure to different careers at the Class 8 and earlier stages so that Tibetan students have all the information and encouragement. Number 6, increase scholarships for those pursuing higher Tibetan language studies. Number 7, review the current scholarship program so that the resources can be invested in ensuring more Tibetan professionals. Number 8, Department of Education should guide students and further promote the various scholarships available. Number 9, increase school counselors and establish counseling curriculum to be implemented in schools at various levels. Number 10, encourage students to pursue career in counseling. Theme: a healthier Tibetan community. Background: Department of Health. Department of Health is one of the 7 departments of the Kasha of Central Tibetan Administration. Department of Health is registered under the name of Tibetan Voluntary Health Association. The Health Kalu and its administration provide governance and leadership to the Tibetan health system. Department of Health directly oversees the health and well-being of more than 100,000 Tibetans living in India, Nepal and Bhutan and administers around 50 health facilities, 7 hospitals, 5 primary health centers and 38 clinics. The health facilities are able to provide primary health care including outpatient consultation, material and child health services, minor surgeries, diagnostic, pharmacy, dental, physiotherapy and referral services. The health facilities have been set up as charitable institutions to attend to the medical needs of Tibetans in the various settlements. As such, the cost of all available services, including medicines, were subsidized. Few of the hospitals, Dalek Hospital in Dharamshala, Choje Khangsar Hospital in Balakopi, and Dogiling Tibetan Settlement Hospital in Mungod have inpatient facilities and are able to provide more advanced and wide range of care to the patients. The Department of Health facilities currently do not provide advanced tertiary level medical care. Core programs under Department of Health: TB control, reproductive health, maternal and child health, adolescent health, mental health, community outreach are the key programs currently implemented by the CTA's Department of Health. Since 2012, Department of Health has been running the Tibetan Medicare system for Tibetans in India, a self-insurance scheme that provides coverage to its members through a reimbursement system based on claims submission. Additionally, an electronic health information system that was initially launched in 2014 is currently being reformed and implemented along with piloting of an electronic medical record system. Recommendations from the 550 Forum. Health challenges faced by the Tibetan community. Number 1. Organize outreach health service program aimed at elderly population and expecting mothers. Number 2. Strengthen antenatal care and postnatal care within the healthcare system. Number 3. Introduce point-of-care testing for lifestyle-related health conditions. Number 4. Share referral services amongst the doctors of patients, added convenience. Number 5. Introduce rotation specialist model within Tibetan settlements to generate greater revenue. Number 6. Establish health worker training to POH administration staff with geriatric training. Number 7. Establish quality of care and quality assurance plans. Number 8. Improve quality of healthcare, standard protocols, emergency care provisions, list of essential drugs, supplies and equipment. Financial stability of Tibetan health system. Number 1. Seek international support through overseas Tibetans. Number 2. Include community contribution model within the existing TMS model. Number 3. Foster hospital revenue mechanism, fee for service, consultation fees, registration fees, lab test fees, etc. Number 4. Establish screening mechanism in schools and monastic institutions to diagnose early stage TB. Number 5. Encourage communication across various health centers. Number 6. Expand services to local Indian people, thus broadening the hospital revenue. Number 7. Increase lab infrastructure to cater to the greater needs of the society. Number 8. Introduce generic drug model in the existing health system. Number 9. Pooling of monastic funding for health-related projects. Number 10. Philanthropy from Tibetan people, sponsorship and supported by Tibetans. And number 11. Introduce private rooms in hospital to cater to the premium clientele within the community. Number 12. Better utilization of underutilized space in hospitals, example income gathering cafeteria, and consolidate to have fewer but higher quality hospitals and clinics. Number 13. Remove the existing 10% subsidy on medicines. Number 14. Explore opportunities by overseas Tibetans to provide sustainable support. Number 15. Establish mobile hospital and clinics. Capacity building and improvement of health services. Number 1. Encourage leadership to focus on physician and manpower retention. Incentivize the medical professionals by paying market rate compensation for better retention and lower attrition rate. Number 2. CTA should provide higher education opportunities and more scholarships, especially to MD seats and postgraduates level. Number 3. CTA should explore partnership with private medical colleges for trust-funded seats for postgraduate programs. Number 4. Provide skill development trainings, conference, workshops, national and overseas visits for further clinical exposure for medical professionals and staff. Number 5. Formulate policy to convert contract staff to permanent staff and offer better compensations and perks. Number 6. Offer exposure and orientation program for fresh graduates. Provide new medical graduates on-the-job training after graduation for greater experience. Number 7. Develop a standardized protocol to deliver primary health care, technical experts inside the health department, feedback and peer evaluation system, top-down and bottom-up approach, hotline to report issues, suggestion box, evaluation and feedback at central level, and proactive health committee. Integration and expansion of Sowa Rigpa, Tibetan medicine system. Number 1. The Department of Health should have a Sowa Rigpa section and representation. Number 2. Develop an electronic medical record system at Tibetan Medical and Astrological Institute and integrate it with the Health Department's HRS program. Number 3. Protect the Sowa Rigpa as a Tibetan tradition and medical practice in terms of intellectual property, trademark, etc. Number 4. Formulate a plan in developing research capacity, manpower, funding, expertise, and technical support and research protocol. Number 5. Set up a joint committee of the Health Department and TMAI to discuss areas of integration, including exchange of knowledge between allopathic and Sowa Rigpa doctors, developing doctor-to-doctor relationship between the two systems, exploring scope of integration for research practice on specific diseases, and scope of integration on preventive healthcare. Alternative service delivery models and preventive healthcare. Number 1. Foster social and behavior change communication by involving community in developing material and strategy, organizing cultural events, facilitating family discussions, engaging school children through projects, undertaking social media campaigns, and identifying and supporting community champions and role models. Number 2. Scale and strengthen the existing comprehensive community outreach and coordinated care program led by Department of Health. Number 3. Leverage technology for behavior change, including developing television program by experts, doctors on specific health-related programs. Number 4. Involve community in developing material, strategy, and participatory needs assessment. Number 5. Engage school children in health projects. Number 6. Identify and promote community champions and role models. For example, if a SB patient attended rehab services and recovered well after that, like getting good job in the community, those should be made community champions to encourage others. Theme: Economic Development of Tibetan Community. Background: the government of India welcomed His Holiness the 14th Dalai Lama when he sought asylum in India in 1959. India then welcomed more than 80,000 refugees and provided land in various states where these refugees would settle in formal settlements. In addition, Tibetan refugees fled to Nepal and Bhutan, and various settlements were established for them there. Currently, more than 100,000 Tibetan refugees live in India and Nepal, mostly in 39 settlements, the largest concentration of Tibetan people living outside of Tibet. The settlements aim to provide shelter and livelihood for the people who live there and also to preserve Tibetan culture and national identity. Recent trends, however, indicate that more and more refugees are moving from the settlements to urban clusters in the cities of India and Nepal. This trend is particularly pronounced among young Tibetans with higher levels of education. As a result, the population in the settlements is in significant decline, with a declining number of young families and working-age adults. In addition, since the late 1990s, more and more Tibetans have migrated to other countries. Currently, the Tibetan diaspora includes more than 30 countries, with large concentrations in North America, Western Europe, and Australia. The CTA believes that in the relatively near term, there will be as many Tibetans living around the world as in the refugee settlements. These Tibetans living overseas have access to better education and more financial and other resources than the refugee communities in India, Nepal, and Bhutan. The migration of Tibetan refugees from the agricultural settlements to the cities of India and Nepal and to overseas countries constitutes the most significant economic development and social challenge for the Tibetan refugee community. This migration represents the potential loss of a critical mass and concentration of population in exile, with the related prospect of diminishing the community's ability to preserve Tibetan culture and maintain Tibetan national identity. Recommendations from the 550 Forum: Addressing Migration and Youth-Related Issues. Number 1. Youth today have new and different aspirations and education. These aspirations and education must be taken into account when seeking to address migration and employment issues. CTA should have a clear and evidence-based view of what types of work, income-generating activities, and lifestyle environments need to be provided to make living in the refugee communities in India, Nepal, and Bhutan more attractive. Number 2. Developing large-scale agri-businesses and large-scale sustainable tourism activities can provide significant opportunities to create new and interesting jobs and income generation. They can help build the economies and make the settlements and even living in urban areas more interesting and challenging for youth. These can also improve life and provide more livelihood opportunities to help reduce migration from the settlements. Number 3. CTA should encourage and support entrepreneurs and small and medium-sized entrepreneurs to create new jobs and income-generating opportunities. Creating a supportive and enabling environment and required business development services for SMEs and entrepreneurs can help provide better and more diverse opportunities for work, income generation, and lifestyles. Number 4. Youth should be educated about exciting and new employment and income generation opportunities that agribusiness, sustainable cultural tourism, SMEs, and entrepreneurship can provide. This education should be integrated in the education system. Number 5. Opportunities should be explored to establish non-agricultural businesses in the settlements. These might be related to technology, manufacturing, or other businesses. Attracting private sector companies should be a priority. Also, public-private partnerships should be considered. The objective of this exploration should be to develop new employment and income-generating possibilities that would be more attractive to youth and other settlement residents. Number 6. CTA should seek to participate in and take advantage of GOI programs such as Skill India and Startup India that could help to train youth and provide them with better skills for vocational and other training and better ability to become successful entrepreneurs or SME owners. Number 7. Successful Tibetans in India, Nepal and Bhutan and overseas should be mobilized to provide monitoring, skill development, business training and other encouragement and support for youth who seek to start and manage their own businesses. The Tibetan Chamber of Commerce should be involved in these activities. Number 8. Educating and creating awareness about the TRP 2014 among the Government of India machinery for smooth implementation of the policy. Number 9. Accessible housing facilities to those scattered communities to consolidate and stabilize the migration. Number 10. Youth-related summit and conference should be organized in the settlement to create an environment for better youth participation for the CTA programs. Number 11. Coding and programming courses should be introduced in high schools as it increases their employability. Shifting the agricultural model in the settlements. Number 1. CTA should seek to transform the agricultural settlements to a large-scale agribusinesses model. This transformation must be planned and managed at scale. Each of the settlements should be considered based on its own unique circumstances, capabilities, and opportunities. A comprehensive approach to land use planning considering all the settlements would be highly beneficial. Number 2. Agribusinesses planning should be undertaken with a view toward market demand in local markets and in India as a whole. The Indian markets are huge, growing and very discriminating. International markets can also be considered for specific products with good export potential. Number 3. CTA should consider establishing a newly organized, separately funded and independent private limited company to identify, initiate, invest in and help manage various new agribusinesses. Number 4. Specific products for agribusinesses need to be carefully identified. Professional advice and guidance will be critical in this area. Number 5. Strategic partnerships should be explored for developing large-scale agribusiness. Indian and multinational companies should be considered as strategic partners. Identifying and developing relationships with appropriate strategic partners will again require expert support and assistance. Number 6. Farmer-producer companies should be organized to establish a high level of cooperation and collaboration among farmers. FPCs should integrate many farmers and consolidate farming acreage to focus on high-value crops and to encourage the organization of agribusiness companies around the FPCs. A key role of FPCs should be to leverage buying power for inputs and to create new marketing and sales channels using the leverage of larger and better quality products. Number 7. There are excellent prospects of identifying, marketing and selling specific cash crops in particular local markets. Identifying and planning to grow, market and sell these crops needs to be done on a settlement-by-settlement basis. This can significantly improve incomes for farmers working primarily in local markets. Number 8. CTA should seriously consider establishing and managing a special brand for agricultural products produced in the community. This should be a premium brand and allow the community to sell specially chosen products at higher prices in Indian and international markets. One suggestion was that this Tibet brand should align with the concepts of peace, harmony, and compassion. Number 9. The settlement communities should be involved in discussion of these issues and regarding plans for moving forward. Their input and understanding of the processes involved and the results that are being sought are critical. Number 10. CTA can work with NAMDREL, Federation of Tibetan Cooperative, in developing a research marketing cell to assist the Tibetan farmers in getting easy and early access to the market. Number 11. CTA should help farmers in creating market linkages for organic products, and intensive training should be provided for organic farming techniques. Number 12. Empower FTCI and cooperatives to engage in and explore public-private partnership model in the settlement. Number 13. CTA can engage in joint venture with private companies to promote commerce and industry in the settlement. Building Tibetan fundamental institutions and services. Number 1. The community requires a broad range of financial products and services. These include savings, credit, insurance, financial planning, and asset management. In addition, SMEs and entrepreneurs will require seed capital and growth capital, which can take the form of both debt and equity. The financial institutions that CTA helps to establish should seek to address each of these requirements. Number 2. Financial institution such as an NBFC may not be able to meet all the financial needs of the community. It will be prudent to begin with an NBFC as is currently being planned, but seed and growth capital are also immediate needs to help fund SMEs and entrepreneurs. Thus, CTA should explore the possibilities to raising this type of capital sooner rather than later. Number 3. Create an independent, autonomous working space for NBFC to provide the bureaucratic red tapeism. Number 4. Create awareness surrounding NBFC and its products. Number 5. Overseas Tibetans can play an important role in building sustainable financial institutions. They can be sources of capital and professional guidance, advice, expertise, and experience, as many overseas Tibetans are involved in finance. Further, overseas Tibetans can play an important part in governance of new financial institutions by sitting on boards and providing ongoing management and operational advice and guidance. Number 6. CTA should seek to involve successful Tibetans in India, Nepal, and overseas Tibetans in the building of these financial institutions at the early stages of their planning and development. Further, at later stages of development, a formal prospectus should be prepared describing the new financial institutions and its business to attract investment and other involvement from successful Tibetans in India, Nepal, and overseas. CTA should have a disciplined and targeted program for distributing its prospectus and approaching potential Tibetan investors living overseas. Number 7. Strategic partnerships should also be explored as the community builds its financial institutions. Many financial products are commodities and can be developed in partnership with Indian companies. Insurance products are a good example. Number 8. Regular communications should be developed for the community regarding the development of the NBFC and other financial institutions. It is of critical importance to have broad community support and understanding of the products and services to be provided, and to be sure that these products and services are what the community needs. Supporting small and medium-sized businesses and encouraging entrepreneurship. Number 1. CTA's primary responsibility in encouraging and supporting SMEs and entrepreneurs is to establish an enabling environment for these activities. A broad range of business development services should be available. These might include, for example, business plan development, financial planning and budgeting, marketing and sales planning, legal services, accounting training, tax training, assistance in obtaining loans in the Indian banking system, etc. Number 2. Much good work has already been done in this area through TED, but it needs to be strengthened and regularized. Number 3, the Tibetan Chamber of Commerce may be a good strategic partner for providing some of these services. Number 4, in addition, CTA should assure that Tibetan SMEs and entrepreneurs have access to all relevant GOI services and programs. Number 5, CTA should facilitate the establishment of sources for seed and growth funding for SMEs and entrepreneurs. Foreign direct investment funds can be a good source for funding of this type. Private capital can also be attracted for this type of funding. Successful Tibetans in India, Nepal and Bhutan and overseas Tibetans may also be good funding sources. Number 6, new financial institutions that the community establishes should pay particular attention to SMEs and entrepreneurs when designing its products and services. SMEs and entrepreneurs have special financial needs, and the new financial institutions should seek to include these enterprises among their customers. Number 7, SMEs and entrepreneurs need access to the latest technologies and links to other SME owners and entrepreneurs in the Indian markets and overseas who may have technologies and solutions that can benefit their businesses. In addition, assistance identifying and expanding to new markets is a critical challenge that all SMEs and entrepreneurs will face. These issues are also applicable to many of the Tibetan traditional arts and craft enterprises. CTA should look for ways to assure that this access and assistance is available. Number 8, CTA should support for revival of traditional arts and crafts. Number 9, start a garment factory to supply the product to winter sweater seller, which can also become a major source of income for CTA. Number 10, focus on branding and marketing of Tibetan sweater selling business. Role of Tibetans living overseas. Number 1, CTA should establish a special committee or working group to provide a well-researched written report addressing the prospects for living Tibetans living overseas in economic development activities. This report should present specific, actionable recommendations regarding how best to attract and involve Tibetans living overseas in these activities. Number 2, Tibetans living overseas can be important sources of expertise and capital. Number 3, they can, for example, play ongoing roles in governance and oversight of management and operations for new financial institutions, new agribusinesses, and new culturally sustainable tourism activities. Number 4, they can also provide capital for new financial institutions and seed and growth capital for SMEs and entrepreneurs. Further, they can help structure and design appropriate investment vehicles for this purpose. Number 5, CTA should develop specific and targeted communications programs in each of the countries where overseas Tibetans are living to attract and involve these Tibetans at each of these levels. Number 6, communications on these issues with Tibetans living overseas should be regular and ongoing. These are long-term relationships that need to be developed and nurtured over time. Number 7, officers of Tibet and the Tibetan communities abroad should be actively engaged and participate in these efforts to attract and involve overseas Tibetans in economic development activities. Number 8, CTA should consider establishing a Chamber of Commerce or Tibetans living overseas. This might provide a framework for communicating and working regularly on economic development issues, including capital raising and providing expertise and guidance on related matters. Number 9, in addition, CTA might consider establishing a formal advisory committee to the Kasha constituted of Tibetan living overseas to assure that their advice, guidance and expertise can be obtained regularly on economic development issues and opportunities. Additional comments. CTA's primary role in economic development should be to create a supportive and enabling environment for economic activities. For new and large-scale initiatives, it should conduct needed research and market feasibility studies using professional experts and advisors as required. It should also help to identify strategic partners and potential funding and other resources and expertise that projects will require. It might provide seed funding for pilot and demonstration projects. It is appropriate for CTA to seek revenue-generating opportunities from economic development activities it facilitates to help fund the CTA. Going forward, this type of revenue from economic activities should replace donor and aid-related revenue to move the community to sustainability and self-sufficiency. Further, it is appropriate for CTA to make investments from time to time in economic activities that it has helped to develop, again with a view toward helping to fund CTA activities and assure the long-term financial health and viability of the community.